This is the Mind of Mansion show. I'm here with Garret Price from Dynasty Nerds, the nerd herd representing here on the Mind of Mansion show. This is going to be a Dynasty-focused program. We have a lot to talk about today. We've got the players we're trading for, our top trade targets, who are our firewall, fringe running backs and startups, where once those guys are off the board, then we're going to be drafting rookies only. Certainly, we're going to talk rookies, sleeper quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends in this rookie class. We're still, there's still some. I'm sure there's still some takes that we haven't fully processed, and some positions we haven't fully processed from NFL free agency. I'm sure Garret has some unique takes on some of these landing spots. So, a lot to talk about today. Let's just kick it off. Garret, talking about the Dynasty Nerds, what do you have there that you can share with this audience in terms of features, functionality, community activities you're doing? Because I know that one of the things about Dynasty Nerds that is that unique that we all want to emulate. Those of us that have like fantasy platforms is the community that you've developed. So if you maybe talk a little bit about that and anything else that is kind of hot and fresh over there at Dynasty Nerds.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, we are we're very thankful for all the nerd herders and everybody that supports the show. And it's one that's been on for a long time. The Dynasty Nerds podcast has been airing for over a decade now, so it's been around for a long time in this space, which is pretty awesome. There's a lot of things going on. Obviously, we have the Dynasty GM, so could input your teams and kind of spits out how the rest of your league looks compared to you and positions you're strong and weak. And we've got all that. My personal favorite is our film room, watching all 22 tape. I mean, you just like, if you are a film person, there's nothing better than getting your hands on the all 22 tape for these rookies. So the film room that we have is, it's fantastic. That's what I use for all of my scouting and processing all of these players. So you can get your hands on the same tape that we are watching. And then, we have our Discord and our YouTube and all of the different ways that we connect with the Nerd Herd. Even have a new show that we just recently launched called Roster Rescue, where I hop on with a couple other guys, Rich sometimes Taylor, and hop on. And basically we go through people's teams and we're like, hey, here's why this team's struggling. Here's some moves we would make. Here's directions we would go with this team, which we've been having a lot of fun with. So, I appreciate the opportunity to plug it all.
All right. Here's a name for that service. You want to workshop a name for that? I'm not saying
sure.
I love your name is
Throw
great.
It out there.
Your name is great, but I have a particular skill, right? We all have a particular set of skills. I have a particular skill, which is coming up with good, catchy names for shit.
Ooh, right? I like it.
Right. So the Breakout Finder app, right? So the Breakout Finder, get the Breakout Finder app, where we have the probabilities of all the running backs, receivers of breaking out. Look for that in the App Store. The 2025 rookie class is going to be live any day now. Roster Doctor.
Ooh, I like that. I like that, Roster Doctor. That's
just
pretty
came
good.
Up with it. Just as you were speaking, as you were talking about it, I was like, "Oh, I think I know what I'd call that."
I like it. Yeah, you could put a little medical sign on the logo there.
Right? We're gonna get you well, man. My team's pretty beat up. And we've all taken over these teams. We've taken over some orphans that were just absolutely rated. Most of these orphans, basically, the guy that had it before, the previous Dynasty manager, he was going for it. He had traded some picks. He acquired some veterans. You pick up this roster. It's got Tyreek Hill. It's got Aaron Jones. And you're like, what am I going to do with it? And I would certainly trade Tyreek Hill low for whatever you can get for him. I basically don't believe in the Dolphins, and I don't believe in coach worship, and I'm typically finding value in fading coach hype. There are some exceptions. Like, I think fundamentally the Bears are set up well this year, but typically when a guy like a Ben Johnson takes over as the it coach of the year, right, of that season, I'm going to that's an automatic fade for me typically. I just happen to really like the fundamentals of the Bears roster. So in that particular situation, I'm not just outright fading all Bears. But that's a great example of a situation where, Mike McDaniel in Miami, I was never a believer that he had the special playbook that no one else had and that only his magical plays would work and he could fix Tua and all these things. Forget it, man. Forget it. So I published on Twitter X, fantasy_mansion, my 10 bold predictions for this year. I was workshopping it because Theo and I recorded one. It's going to drop any day now. We're live now on YouTube and on Twitter X and all these places. But we're going to be dropping specifically a bold predictions YouTube video in the next day or two where you can find out of those 10 bold predictions that I put out there, which 5 I ended up choosing to go with, because Theo brought 5 to the table, I brought 5 to the table, and we have our top 10. One of those predictions was that Tua would implode, Tyreek Hill would give up on the team, and that completely out of the depths, the abyss of failure, just when you were ready to sell low, just when you were ready to call it, Jaylen Waddle roars back with a top 5 fantasy finish in the month of December. What do you think of that?
That's I mean, obviously it's bold, but of these, I think that one is one of the more realistic ones. I mean, we've seen over and over Tua struggled in later on in the season. It's particularly cold weather games. He hasn't been great. Tyreek Hill is always a wild card in this, and he doesn't seem to be getting better. Father Time does seem to be catching up with him a little bit. And Jaylen Waddle has been one of the more depressed assets, one of my favorite buy low guys right now, because we've seen him finish as a top 12 receiver, so we know he has the capability of doing it. So I see a lot of possibilities there where it might get to a point in the season where that's not even bold anymore, where it's just like, yeah, this is the route that things are heading. So I like it.
Yeah, with Hill on the field, they ask Waddle to run more short intermediate routes. He played 15 games last year, only 827 air yards. Think about that. But 2 years ago, you go back to 2022, guy put up 1,400 air yards. So he's had seasons where they asked him to get downfield, and he did it successfully, was a top 12 fantasy option. The year before that, he actually scored more fantasy points per game the year before that, but he did it all with Yak. And a huge target share, 142 targets. So at some point, Jaylen Waddle will be a mature, fully formed receiver with a 140 target season on his resume, with a 1,400 air yard season on his resume, and there'll be no Tyreek Hill to stop him. It'll all come together, and this is how you see one of the great rebound seasons, because he's good. Like, we know he was a top 10 pick. The guy's fast, agile. He is just a very fundamentally sound athletic receiver. He's not elite deep speed. You can see he runs a 4.43 on Player Profiler. He's not like the most elite separator, but he is just a box stuffing receiver, especially in today's NFL. It used to be that a guy that was 180 that couldn't run a sub 4.40 was destined to be a tweener and never really find a true target commanding role in the NFL. Those days are long gone, right? Now you come into the league at 180, 190 pounds, you can be the target leader easily. That's just, it's not every team doesn't have a Mike Evans like 10, 20 years ago in the NFL. So I love the setup for Jaylen Waddle being great when the team is at its lowest point. Then they have to throw. They're getting blown out against Buffalo. Even teams like the Patriots are beating them, because the Patriots are sort of poised to take a big step forward this year. I'm excited about that. And I think that, on FastDraft, the FastDraft app, and so go to your app store, go to Google Play, get the FastDraft app. There's a Flex 4 game. Right, so we'll talk about the rookie game. There's an Origins game. Everyone's playing the Origins game right now on FastDraft, where it's just all rookies, and there's still lots of value, especially with these Iowa State receivers, with some of these fast running backs like Tootin. There still hasn't. No one has really decided to go all in on some of these rising athletic running backs and wide receivers on FastDraft. So there's still great value in round 2, 3, 4 on the FastDraft app in the Origins game. However, there's also a Flex 4 game. There's actually more money at stake in the Flex 4 game. And in round 5, round 6, Jaylen Waddle becomes a very interesting flyer because he's low owned. So what you do in this particular format, where you're just drafting 6 guys, the top 4 into your lineup every week, best ball style, in round 6, you're not drafting the next guy in the ADP board. No one's doing that. I mean, maybe someone is. I'm sure there are some that do, but typically you're looking for this year's Chase Brown, this year's comeback player of the year, this year's rookie of the year, Alad McConkey. That's the strategy in the Flex 4 game. And right now we have 3 different real money fantasy games that are live. We've got the all defense game, D Up, where you have a lot of IDP guys that are like, oh, we finally have a game we can play for money. You get the all rookie game, which like the Dynasty Nerds in particular love. I mean, by the way, when you sign up on FastDraft, use code NERDS. Use code NERDS and we will match your deposit up to $50. Code NERDS on FastDraft. And yeah, so there's a lot of sort of game theory related strategy. A lot of it is around ownership in the Flex 4 game, where when you get into round 5, round 6, you want to start looking at some of these guys that might be sub 10% owned and be like, okay, what is best case scenario outcome for this guy? And sure. Jaylen Waddle could easily be like comeback player of the year. Not all the guys in that zone even have that in their range of outcomes. So that's it's one of my guys this year. And it's funny because I never drafted him in rookie drafts. I have very little Waddle in Dynasty. I've just been, acquiring a share here, a share there in the last couple of years. And now I think by the time the season starts, I'm going to be overweight on him, having drafted zero Waddle in rookie drafts. Can you remember like a player where you remember, I was like, I'm out on this guy. I don't know what the NFL sees in him in the top 10. No way. I mean, think about all these Alabama receivers flaming out, and yet you're going to spend the 6th overall pick on a 180-pound receiver that stands 5'9". I just can't get behind that, and I'm not going to draft him where he's going in rookie drafts. I think at that time, I was probably more in on like a Javonte Williams in that particular draft class than I was a Jaylen Waddle. But now, oh man, I'm in.
Yeah. It's all about the cost. It's all about the cost. In that same draft class, I remember specifically after his rookie campaign, Najee Harris, he had that huge amount of targets from Ben Roethlisberger. Well, Ben Roethlisberger retires. And one of my things was like, I don't think that he's going to be able to put up the same numbers because I don't think he's going to be getting the same amount of targets from a rookie quarterback that's going to be more likely to take a sack or run it versus what Big Ben was doing. And but now it's flipped for me, just like you were talking about, to where his value dipped so low last season before the year that I started acquiring more. He had a decent year, not a great year, but for the price, solid year. And this year looks like there could be some really good things to come. So I'm with you. There are certain guys where it's not necessarily that I think the player's terrible. It's just I think everybody's overvaluing that player, but then everything shifts and everybody starts undervaluing that player. And hey, now they're worth the cost.
If we look at Najee, I mean, he is a metronome. Look at this. 17 games played, 17 games played, 17 games played, 1,000 yards, 1,000 yards, 1,000 yards, 1,000 yards. 4 yards a carry. He is what he is. But this was on a team that was not necessarily putting up a lot of points. So this is with Kenny Pickett under center. This is with Russell Wilson under center. Life is not easy in that particular situation. Life is pretty easy when your team has like 17 first-round picks on the offensive line. When your team is playing elite tackles at guard because they just have such a preponderance of talent, right? And you have Justin Herbert now with all kinds of time back there. It's the perfect situation. Najee has to fade a running back in the draft. But I always fade running, even in the year where there's the most running back talent this year, right? This is the deepest year I've ever seen in the NFL draft at the running back position. And yet there's all kinds of outs for Najee Harris. The first out is they just don't draft a running back until late in day 3. Then it's like everyone's going to be rushing to get Najee Harris. But then there's also plenty of running backs that they draft where they just start slow. Where if they draft a Dylan Sampson or they draft a Tootin, they draft a slasher to go along with Najee Harris, the grinder, and that player, that rookie, he struggles in camp. He struggles with pass protection. He struggles with fumbles. There's going to be a couple of these rookies that struggle with fumbles, that struggle with ball security, that struggle with pass protection, that struggle with some of the fundamentals, and they open the season as the number 3 running back. Like, you're not allowed to be surprised when a running back you really like struggles in camp, and then, we look up and he's actually the number 3 running back, and it's like the Najee Harris show for at least the first half of the season. So I think the majority of outcomes will at least have Najee outperforming through, let's say, 8 weeks.
Yep. I would totally agree with that. And yeah, you're right. If there's a scenario, which I think there is one, where they don't draft a running back until round 4, round 5. If that's the scenario, I mean, we could be talking about Najee as a clear top 12 running back in this year's group, just because of the sheer volume he's going to get and how long it's going to take for him to even be touched with this offensive line. The play action is going to be awesome for Justin Herbert. Like, this offense has the potential to really take off in this scenario, and Najee could really benefit from it.
Double-digit touchdowns, very much in his range of outcomes. So this is a guy where you're drafting him in FastDraft in the Flex 4 game. He's there oftentimes, and still in round 6, he's there. And then in Dynasty, you're trading for him. Like, this is one of the. I want to stay out of the middle in Dynasty. I want rookies, and I want some of these, Najee Harris profiles, and then I'll go all the way up. Right? If you have Gibbs, you're not trying to trade him. If you have a Breece Hall, hopefully you're not trying to trade him, and then stay out of the middle the best you can. And this is Najee Harris, the perfect running back for dynasty managers that are just trying to stay out of the middle. What about Breece Hall? I know that you scouted Breece Hall. I remember you scouted Breece Hall. You had him as the number 1 running back you'd ever scouted personally. Bijan was, but
Bijan was, but Breece was very high as well.
I remember Breece Hall was one of the top running backs you've ever scouted. And a lot of people really loved Breece Hall coming out of Iowa State. What do you do now that there's even whispers that the Jets could draft a running back in the first round?
Yeah, Breece is a tough one because on his raw talent, on his raw ability alone, I mean, he's one of the more talented running backs in the NFL. He can do it on the ground. He can do it through the air. He's got the skill set that you want as a fantasy football dynasty manager. Like, he's got that type of skill set. The tricky part we run into now is kind of the antithesis of what we were talking about with Najee Harris, where this is not a good offensive line. And in fact, they've lost some of their better pieces to the offensive line over the past couple of years. Who knows what direction things are headed with, the team in general. Justin Fields is now the quarterback. So that's where this gets tricky. But when the perception on a player comes off of a lower year, production-wise, and the team around it doesn't look very good, it presents an opportunity where before, Breece Hall is costing you 3+ firsts in order to try to acquire a guy like that. Now he's entering a realm where he's much more available than he would have ever been before. So while, yes, things aren't as pretty as they are for other running backs, he is a talented enough running back to be able to overcome those things. Let's remember, this was a really bad team a couple seasons ago when he finished as a top 3 fantasy football running back. So he is the type of player that can overcome some of these issues. And I think he will again.
he's been in a similar situation to Najee Harris, where their quarterback play has just been bad. Aaron Rodgers playing slow, not getting a lot of red zone looks. All he's been is efficient, even between the tackles. Like, he has explosive runs. Like, that's how you can juice your yards per carry up to like 5.8, like he did in 2022. Long, explosive runs. For some reason, coaches don't value the explosive runs quite as much as they do just the ability to grind out an extra yard here and there. NFL teams think that players like Najee Harris and Breece Hall are closer than most fantasy gamers, where we're like, they're worlds apart. And I could see plenty of NFL coaches going, and it's like, no, man, no, we like Najee Harris just based on the situation being so good. And a lot of fantasy gamers haven't quite processed how good that offensive line could be, and then how good that offense could be when the offensive line is fully coalesced. And, Lad McConkey taking a leap forward and then potentially adding yet more talent on offense. It's a delicious situation. The Jets, Justin Fields is certainly going to open up more running lanes, certainly, right, for Breece Hall. That's exciting. But I also think that there's a possibility that they just, for whatever reason, don't believe he's the answer, which is why they drafted 2 running backs last year in the draft. And they just saw all these front office. I'm so interested to see what happens with this running back class. Theo predicted 3 running backs are going to go first round. We'll see. And the question is, let's say there are 3 that go: Travion Henderson, Omarion Hampton, and of course Judkins. If that happens, how high do they go? How early do they go? How much correction or overcorrection is there from what happened with Saquon last year? From Saquon, the narrative that he, basically helped the Eagles win a championship. It was the Saquon Barkley championship, even though we know it was really the Jalen Hurts championship and the defense championship and the offensive line championship, and then Saquon down the list in terms of factors for why they won. But anyway, narratives are great, and they can help us get value. But I don't know how many front offices are going to fall for it and let that, lead the way, like that wrong head thinking lead the way in the draft. It's very possible that there's just this new come to Jesus around the running back position. And the thing is, Las Vegas has been making sound decisions in their front office the last couple of years. And so all these people mocking Jeanty to the Raiders, I'm just not sure. And then, but what happens, then you have to play it out. Okay, let's say the Raiders get it. Let's say the Raiders understand that you cannot invest a first-round top 10 pick in a running back in the NFL. The value is just not there at that position, no matter how good the guy is. Someone in their front office in the analytics department has written a memo, and the GM has processed it, and there's no fucking way he's going to do that, right? Well, then you got to start thinking, who's next? The Jets are next.
It's true.
The Jets are going to have to let Jeanty get by them. And some of these, what you see with some of these front offices is they just have a board up there, and they just have a best player available. And some of these guys are just going to look up and see best player available, and they're going to push the button. And so it's possible. Lance Zierlein is already mocking Jeanty to the Jets. If that happens, then Breece Hall would likely be traded. Then we were looking at like a DeAndre Swift traded from the Lions situation after the Lions drafted Jahmyr Gibbs. That's very possible. I think the probability that that happens is higher than anyone has fully processed yet.
It would be fascinating. I mean, it would be true cinema for us Dynasty fantasy football fans, because the running back carousel that could create would just be fascinating.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't put it past them. I could see the Jets doing that. I could see the Bears at 10, realistically going in on Jeanty if he's still there. Like
if he's there, like what's
if
gonna
he's there.
what if I could see a team the thirst. I don't know. I wish there was a gauge, Garrett. I wish there was a gauge where I could see front office RB thirst. Wouldn't that be an interesting metric to have just on the league as a whole?
The thirst meter.
Yeah, the thirst meter, because we know it was at an all-time low a year ago when Barkley hits the market and you get incredible value on a running back. That just even from an analytics department standpoint, you could see. I'm sure they were looking around going, "Wow, that's good value. That's a good value on a running back." We're finally at that point where running backs are going for real value in the NFL. Wow, we're there. And so you can see that would be the low point on this gauge. And then where is it now? Like how much has it corrected or overcorrected post, the Barkley Super Bowl?
The funny part about that too, and I think everybody saw the tweet about, look at all these free agent running backs and where they're at now, and all those teams are successful. Jacobs with Green Bay and Derrick Henry with Baltimore, and we've seen all that. The part that concept or that philosophy doesn't take into account is those teams weren't bad before because of the running backs, and the teams aren't good now because of the running backs. These are really nice cherries on top for really good teams that are already in place. So yes, if you were a team in the mid to late 20s and you want to take a running back, sure. If you have everything else around you and you think that's the cherry on top, awesome. You think Travion Henderson to the Commanders is the end all be all? Fine. That's awesome. But if you're drafting in the bottom 10, even I would argue the bottom 20, if you're one of those teams, realistically, you probably have a lot of holes to fill. And running back is not going to be the difference between a 3-win team and a 10-win team. It's the difference between a 3-win team and a 4-win team.
Well, that's why people are mocking Travion Henderson to Washington, because they don't have a lot of
I would love
left. They've been, I can't believe we're in a world where it used to be that you had Gruden brothers driving these franchises into the ground. It wasn't that long ago that you had Grudens driving Washington and Las Vegas into the ground. And now these are two franchises that are making really savvy decisions. And it's just disorienting to me to see these two teams. They're the two teams making the savvy decisions that are the most surprising. I talked about this on the Decision Point. Check out the Decision Point show I recorded with Anand and Dury. We talked about this exact thing. Like I can't get used to this. So it makes so much logical sense for Washington to, at this point, use that pick on a running back, because again, you talk about Baltimore, you talk about Philadelphia, they didn't have any needs left. It was like the last thing. You said the cherry on top. That was the last. Oh, we do need a running back. I guess we've filled all the other needs. Now we can go running back and go win. And now Washington's looking in a very similar situation. You notice that the smart teams that are going to find value at running back, particularly in the free agent market, are the ones that are waiting, hold. They're not investing big capital in a running back in the draft. That's the last thing they're doing. They're not overpaying in free agency. They're waiting until value falls to them. And they're like, okay, now we'll push the button on Derrick Henry. And the whole league looks around and goes, Derrick Henry to the Ravens? How was that not the most obvious? How did he fall to, like, in some cases, the third round of fantasy drafts last year? Just embarrassing. Just embarrassing. The Saquon Barkley finally is saved. He finally goes to a team where he can score fantasy points at a higher rate than it was ever possible in New York. Oh, well, he's not going to get all the touchdowns, so I'm not going to draft him in round 1. It's just, okay. The most obvious things are happening and you're not taking advantage. Not my fault, man. We can talk about it on these shows, and you don't want to take advantage. You don't want to draft these guys. Not my fault. it would surprise me at this point. Like I said, Las Vegas, Washington, they've been making savvy moves. For them to sidestep running back in the first round would not surprise me at all. And then that's why I also believe Washington would be the top candidate to trade for Breece Hall. Now, I know I'm spinning multiple scenarios. By far and away, the most likely thing, I understand this. The most likely Occam's razor outcome is Washington needs running back, drafts best available running back. That's by far and away the most likely outcome. But the conspiracy that I can weave, the multiple, the absolute Andromeda galaxy-brained scenario is Jets drafting Jeanty and trading Breece Hall to Washington. And I think if you're Washington, you get that deal done as soon as the pick comes in. Like, as soon as the Jeanty pick comes in, you're on the phone. Like, that's how, I would be a great NFL GM because I would have a team of people that are outlining all these potential scenarios, and we're going to have phone numbers, and because sometimes it's just about how fast are you to pick up the phone. And so we're going to go through the entire first round, second round, and game out all the scenarios. I'm just saying, in a world where I'm the NFL GM and I have all these resources and I have all these assistants and I have all these people that can help me with, clipboards and binders and all these things and cell phones. They have 5 cell phones. And I'd be like, okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. If this happens, I want this GM on speed dial, boom, hand me the phone within 5 seconds. We're going to be the ones. We're going to get Breece Hall if they do this. If these guys do this, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. So there's probably, if I'm Washington or, I'm some team drafting in the second half, I've got probably 5 to 10 scenarios where I want to be picking up the phone instantly if a draft pick comes in. And that would be one of them where before I pick in the late first round, I want to have Hall on my roster. I want that trade to be done in the books. And then we can decide what we're going to be doing in the late first round.
And that's the beauty of that situation. Whereas if you wanted to take Hampton or Travion or somebody in the first round, because that's where you're going to have to take them if you're Washington. They're not getting back to you in the second round. If you were wanting that, now you traded for Breece Hall. Now you still have your first round pick. You're not having to give up your first round pick at this point to get Breece Hall. So you still have your first round pick. You trade a later pick to fill the running back need as opposed to a first round pick. And you even have the money to pay Breece Hall after this year because Jaden Daniels is on a rookie contract right now. So you have the flexibility that some of these other teams had with rookie quarterbacks or young quarterbacks or things like that in order to be able to make those types of moves. So that would be a dream, an absolute dream scenario for the Washington Commanders.
We just got the best comment in the history of the show. This just came in.
Oh, wow.
This is not my account. I swear to God. I swear if we had a Bible, I would put my hand on it. Any religion, Torah, whatever it is, I'll put my hand on it. I'll swear. This is not a person I know. His name is Matthew. It's a great name. Matthew Smith. An even more common name than Matt Kelly, which is hard to do. He writes, Matt Kelly is the best. I love Player Profiler, and I think it's the most innovative and industrious company in the space. I also love the Dynasty Nerds.
Wow.
Wow.
That is a wonderful comment. That you should frame that somewhere, honestly.
I put it up on the screen. I added the nerds part myself. But that's what it is, man. Thank you. Whoever that is, if you want to email me, Matthew Smith, you want to email me, podfather@rotowanderworld.com. I'm going to send you a FastDraft t-shirt. That's what it's all about. Go. And I'll send you 100 promo bucks on FastDraft. That's what it is. That's what we're doing. We want people to be part of this show, to be commenting live. Now, sometimes it's just you pandering to the host. And if you pander just right, where I think you're not quite pandering and this might actually be genuine, and I can sell this as it not being me or not anyone I know, and I didn't plant this, and this is an authentic comment. I think that hit the center of the Venn diagram.
That was nice. Yeah, I'd frame that. I'm printing that out. I'm framing it. It's going on a fat head of it on my wall.
We've triggered people with this Breece Hall to Washington talk, and also Jeanty to the Jets. Sometimes you end up going down a particular topic, and it gets people inspired in a negatively. No one's happy about this. Breece Hall to Washington.
Commanders are happy.
Breece Hall to Washington's pretty great. I mean, that's the thing.
You're thrilled.
We're not reverse engineering this. I was actually looking at a scenario that I could easily see play out. Now, again, credit to Lance Zierlein for even planting the idea that they could do this, because I didn't even think about it. And then when I saw Zierlein, I was like, oh, wait a second. Yeah, of course. This is the NFL, dude. I always forget. And at some point in the month of May, I'll look back at the draft and realize, oh yeah, look at this. Look at the NFL. Or at some point in April, be looking through these mock drafts and I'll see some pick that was projected by some savvy mock drafter, a Cody Carpentier, for example, and Alex Dunlap. And I'll be like, oh yeah, that is possible. I forgot that could even be possible. Is that even? Yes, it is possible. So I have a bunch of other scenarios I want to run by you. I also want to run by all of my trade targets, and I want to get your list of who you want to trade for in Dynasty. We got to talk about sleeper rookies. But for now, I want to just lay out a little bit of background information for everybody about our Dynasty Dominator app. Not everyone has it. It's in the App Store now. You can download it. It's just $5. And then every year, it's just $5 to load the rookies. And so this is a little bit about the app, why it's so popular, and it's actually the Dynasty Dominator app is going into its 7th anniversary in the App Store. So here's what it's all about.
Hey, what if I told you there was a Dynasty app where you could get player lifetime values, evaluate trades, including draft picks out to 2028? Compare the advanced metrics of 2 players. Look up the sentiment, buy, sell, hold on players. Well, there is a mobile app that has all of that and more called the Dynasty Dominator. And it's $5 in the App Store on Google Play. This is my gift to you. The most affordable Dynasty League domination app available today. And if you already have it, the 2025 class is ready to download. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Before we get into any of the things I just laid out, there's some startups happening right now, and the last thing that you should be doing in a startup is drafting a running back that could be dead.
Amen.
A month from now, right? A month from now, many running backs will die. And it's tragedy, man. You can go to YouTube and you can type in, apocalypse, and you can read about the dinosaurs, and you read about asteroids hitting and all these. And it's at that level. I think this running back class is asteroid hitting the Yucatan Peninsula level catastrophe for players like Ty Johnson. But it gets even worse. I mean, even players we respect the hell out of Austin Eckler. I respect the hell out of a lot of these. And, I had some hope for Jaylen Wright and Trey Benson. And there's a lot of play. I like a lot of these guys. Kamani Vidal, right? We talked about this. Kamani Vidal could be the number 2 easily until whoever gets fully ramped up that the Chargers draft. But these are not players you should be touching in startups because they only have one direction they can go in. That's the problem. Right. So give me a veteran that's not a number 1 back that you think is draftable in startups quietly.
If I'm taking somebody super late, now I'm talking we're now in the late teens, early 20s, and we're kind of at that range where it's just flyers, absolute flyers. I would maybe be willing, just because of how cheap he is, I would maybe be willing to go after a Raheem Mostert, just because we've seen the upside. He pairs with Chip Kelly, who he's worked with before, and we know that he can have some big plays happen. So specifically in best ball, I'm thinking there a Raheem Mostert maybe, but overall, like most of these guys, I do want to avoid because you're right. Most of these guys are dying, specifically in like the 5th to 6th round range through like round 12. I'm drafting almost no running backs, like none of these guys. And you're right. There's a lot of guys where on the surface, I like this player, but I just know the odds of them coming through the draft unscathed are just very, very low. So
I like Tajay Spears.
I like Spears. He makes sense with
I like
Tony
Roshan
Pollard
Johnson. I like a lot of these guys, but they're all dead. They're all dead men walking, unfortunately.
Yep.
There's too many good running backs in this draft, Garrett. And the math doesn't make sense. I like Jerome Ford, but give me a break, man. I mean, the clock is ticking. Jerome Ford literally has a month. He has a month to enjoy himself, right? He's the starting running back, ostensibly, at the top of the depth chart in Cleveland, and he's been a successful player. He was a very efficient runner last year, shockingly efficient. Check out Jerome Ford on playerprofiler.com. Look at the advanced metrics. Impressive. But the Cleveland Browns see running back as one of their biggest need areas, and they have a big board. Even if they are more analytics focused than I don't even know how analytics focused. The Browns were pioneers. They were first, and Sashi Brown ended up being sacrificed for the good of the analytics community. He was, of course, if you're the first to really embrace analytics, you're going down. You're going down, right? And he's never to be heard from again. In all of sports. I think he's in soccer now. I think he actually had to switch. I think he went to basketball. I think he went to the 76ers. And then maybe he had to go to Real Madrid. I don't know what he's doing. Who knows where he is? Who cares? Doesn't matter. We knew it was never going to happen. Like the dreams can't come true like that. It's not possible in real life. It was too much real life for Sashi Brown. So now, they're going to be investing heavily in the running back position. And Jerome Ford could look up, and in a couple weeks into the season, he's the number 3 running back. He's not even the number 2. So,
I mean, there's so many guys on this list that are names that should have appeal. Tyrone Tracy, Travis Etienne, Isaiah Pacheco, Ramondre Stevenson, DeAndre Swift. Like all these guys, they're good names. But they could all be out of a job.
You can't draft Ramondre Stevenson.
No.
You can't draft Ramondre Stevenson. You have to, you're like, wait a second, but they have Gibson there too. You're like, what are you talking about? The Patriots absolutely think about it. Again, just try to get in the head of the NFL GM. Do the Patriots see running back as an area of need, yes or no? Yes. Absolutely. They do. Do the Giants see running back as an area of need? Yes. They do, and they just gave up Barkley and were embarrassed. So, of course, they're going to be tilting, trying to fix the glitch at running back. They were very impressed. I'm sure the coaches were like, this Tyrone Tracy, man, he was a playmaker for us. He earned the job. He overtook Motor on the depth chart before anyone really thought it was even going to be a possibility. This guy, he's good. We're a merit-based organization. But we need a third running back in the depth chart. We need a third body in the room. And even if they think they're drafting a body, the problem is that body is going to be as good as Tyrone Tracy because this class is so good. So just the bodies are dangerous.
And that's the hard part is there are easily 15 running backs that will cause problems for that group. And so if you're telling me roughly half the league is going to have a running back that is going to cause problems for the incumbents. Like if I don't have, and I've said this extensively on the Dynasty Nerds podcast, if the player on the team is not named Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, or Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't feel safe. Now, obviously, there's some older guys where, yeah, they probably have their 1 year and they're fine for that 1 year, like a Derrick Henry or whatever. But realistically, I think the point is fair. Like, there's only a handful of guys. Maybe you can find one or two more, but there's only a handful of guys that you can say with real solid confidence that there is not going to be a running back that causes problems in that backfield.
Even Devon Achane is at risk of having some touches siphoned away because
and I love
they
him.
no longer have
Awesome.
Mostert. The front office is not sold on Wright. So think about it. Let's say the Dolphins are not sold on Wright, which from what we saw last year, they're not.
Nope.
Wright had an opportunity. There were injuries on that depth chart, and they didn't give the touches to Wright. We wanted them to, and they did not. So we now have that information. And Mostert is no longer on the team. So this team believes they need to fill a talent void to fill out their running back room. And if that player is very good and they get excited about that guy in camp, they're going to find ways to get him touches, especially knowing that Achane is an undersized running back and he's not going to have the ability to put up 250 carries. He's not a 250 carry running back.
Right.
We would love them to just forget about it. We've seen the Rams and the Bills riding 200-pound running backs as primary backs successfully. And my hobby horse position is that was a moment in time. Like, I hope you enjoyed that moment in time when multiple NFL teams, several NFL teams, decided they were just going to be all in on a sub 200-pound primary back, roll the dice, and make it through the season unscathed. And it happened over and over again with Cook and with Kyron Williams. And that's just not possible. Like that, they rolled snake eyes. That's what happened. Most of the time, they're going to roll a 7. And it's just going to be injuries. And it's going to be some coach, running back coach, whoever it is, saying, we can't trust player X, 195-pound player X, to carry the mail, in quotes. And we're going to have a guy. We're going to have a rookie. We're going to have a Damian Martinez. We're going to have an Ollie Gordon. We're going to have these guys come in and shoulder some of this workload. The Dolphins don't have a Damian Martinez. I mean, has anyone talked about Damian Martinez? Local boy Damian Martinez going to the Dolphins? That's not great for Achane. I know that Achane makes a lot of big plays, but if this team goes sideways, which it very well could. I mean, this is one of the most likely teams to go sideways, as I mentioned earlier. If the team goes sideways and they drafted Damian Martinez, then you're never going to get your money back for Achane ever in Dynasty. We will look back on this moment, like early April, late March, early April, as the high water mark for Achane's value ever.
It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. There's plenty of good between the tackles guys that would fit outside zone schemes that the Dolphins run. A nightmare scenario would be Quinshon Judkins. Like I could see that as a possibility. That would just be a nightmare scenario.
I didn't even think of that. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. That never occurred to me that they would go Judkins. But this is the NFL. And we don't know the current new thirst for running backs. I don't know.
It's going to be fascinating. I can't wait for the draft. I truly cannot wait.
How many owners are going into the GM's office and going, we need our Saquon? Right? Remember the Giants owner, he went in, John Mara Jr., I don't know what his name is. goes into the office and says, I just don't know of how I could live with myself and sleep at night if we lost Saquon. And then the GM, who, again, works, that's his boss. And the GM, Joe Schoen, goes, yeah, we're just going to let him go. Sorry, boss. I couldn't hold on to him. It was a very reasonable deal. He was priced under market, and never mind. Just never let him go. I don't care. We got this guy Motor, though. From FIU. He runs a 4.65, but he runs hard. So he's just as good. Right? Coach likes him, So we'll be fine. And then the boss is like, really? Is that what we're doing? And then we look up, and sure enough, Joe Schoen still has a job. Still there. But I guarantee a lot of GMs would take that advice and be like, you know what? Like, hey, analytics office, I get what you guys are saying. I've read the reports. I have the spreadsheets here, the 3-ring binders you've prepared for me. It's all very impressive. The presentation you did for me in my office, very impressive. We're going with Martinez. Like, right? Or in this case, we're going Judkins.
That would be a nightmare.
I mean, no, it's not possible. It's not going to happen. Dolphins fans, Achane fans, he's really good. Achane's really good. I love him. He's electric. He's amazing. I couldn't believe the target share he earned last year. So impressive. Huge. He's so headed in the right direction. There's no way he's gonna cap out. But it isn't the craziest notion.
Nobody's safe.
We're doing this, man. I can't believe we're doing this to people. I'm not sorry, man. This is the real. Because what happened was I had a perfectly reasonable position on a previous show, Garrett, where I said, all these RB3s, most of them, Amir Abdullah, they're gone. Patrick Taylor, they're all gone. They all need to start looking for new jobs. They're all, myrealestatelicense.com. And they should be going to these sites and figuring out what their next move is going to be. And then there were people in the chat being like, yawn. Yawn. And I'm like, okay, fine. Yawn at that? You want to yawn at that perfectly reasonable position? Why don't we bring on Garrett from the Dynasty Nerds, and we'll talk about how a scenario that he's come up with, Achane gets vaporized. Is that good? Are you yawning now? Are you awake? Are you awake now? I hope you're awake.
You're either bored or you're pissed. Those are the only two
I hope you're awake
options.
At this point. By the way, my guy that I would draft in a startup, who is still a veteran, for sure is Corum. Okay, for sure Corum, because that is one of the safer backfields. I have the Rams and the Buccaneers as two of the safest backfields, where I just can't imagine the teams investing in running back. Mm-hmm. So I like Corum for that reason. He's an injury away from being an RB1. I think Corum will have RB1 weeks. He is going to be the chalk running back. I mean, if anyone wants to make a bet, again, we have FastDraft promo box and we have FastDraft t-shirts up for grabs. Anyone in the chat wants to make a bet with me, Blake Corum is the chalk DFS running back 1 week this year. If you want to over under 0.5 weeks, that Blake Corum is the most owned chalk running back in DFS. Anyone want to take that bet with me? Put it in the chat. Go right ahead. Email me, podfather@rotounderworld.com. Tweet me at fantasy_mansion. Go right ahead. I think that's going to happen. I like Gainwell in Pittsburgh. Knowing they're going to draft a running back, I get it.
Yep.
They signed him for a reason. I like these free agent running backs because the team went out and said, hey, Josh Jacobs, we want you. We're going to pay you. We want you. They had all these choices, and Pittsburgh decided on Gainwell. They want him. So they like him, they respect him, and they see his game, and it's just a low bar. It's a low bar. Certainly, Gainwell has not had the season that Jaylen Warren has, but it's very close. The talent profiles of these two guys are very, very close. And the idea that they're not close is just silliness. It's just like, okay, he hasn't had the opportunity. He's always been behind an elite talent, whether it's an elite talent that works hard like Barkley or an elite talent that is just mailing it in like DeAndre Swift. He's always been behind one of those guys. And now he's, in the on the best, easiest depth chart to climb. And we're fading a first-round running back only because Pittsburgh does not have their second-round pick because of the Metcalf trade. So now we're just fading a first-round pick. Any given pick is not likely to be a running back, no matter how needy the team is. And because of the depth of this class, you can absolutely see the Steelers deciding we're going to wait until round 3 to get our running back. Now, if it's a round 3 running back that comes in, has ball security issues in camp, suddenly it's between Warren and Gainwell to who's going to be the starter. It's not crazy at all. So to me, that's a pick worth making in a startup at the very end of the draft. End of the draft, I could see that. Sean Tucker's another one. And that's because I just think that that's the least likely team to draft a running back. And he does have, upper percentile athleticism across the board. So to me, he's a sort of a less opportunity-friendly, way more buried version of Chase Brown, in that a guy that he came into the league not getting the draft capital because teams perceived him as not being fundamentally sound, but then able to grind and work at it, get better at ball security, get better at pass pro, get to be at least a serviceable NFL player. And if the opportunity presents itself, can leverage explosiveness. So those are some. What do you think of those?
No, I like all of those. I'm in a similar boat. I mentioned before the show Tyler Algier. I know he's not the most exciting player in his own right, but very unlikely that the Falcons go running back with those two kind of set and not a new coaching staff. That's always a tough one too. When it's new staff, they want to get their guys. So same coaching staff as last year. So he's one where that backfield feels fairly safe-ish for me. The other one that could be, there's always risk, but Zach Charbonnet is another one. We saw what he was able to do last year when given the opportunity. Doesn't seem like that's the direction that the Seahawks would go. They have a lot of needs, offensive line, defensively. So those would be a couple others that I would throw into the mix, but those high-end guys that have potential either on great ability or just because of the volume that they would be expected to get if something were to happen to the starter.
So Mark Grebler in the chat says that Corum is in the same situation as Jaylen Wright, and that's just not true. That's just not a fact. First of all, the NFL perceives Blake Corum and Jaylen Wright differently. The Rams, by all accounts, respect the hell out of Blake Corum, and just, that's their system, is they decide on a starter, and at no point did Kyren Williams let them down, and they rode him out. And then, unfortunately, Corum had that upper body injury that robbed him of some touches late in the season. But he's going to be back, and he's going to be fine, right? So every time it's like an arm injury, that's like the perfect way to like quietly exit the season. You don't put up any more stats, and you can stay under the radar. Where Jaylen Wright had many more opportunities to command touches, especially in the context of the Dolphins offense. Achane was not like the bell cow. It was always like, oh, Mostert's going to work in, because they know Achane's just a player that he's fragile and you don't want to overwork him. Whereas the Rams decided we're just gonna ride Kyren Williams. That's just what we're doing. So it's just a different situation. Also, I think that the NFL in general perceives Blake Corum as the bell cow back from Michigan that won the national championship. And Jaylen Wright is just this slasher, could be Tevin Coleman at best. But I don't think NFL teams perceive Jaylen Wright as a bell cow in waiting like they would Corum, right?
I'm with you on that. And I like Jaylen Wright. This is not a anti-Jaylen Wright thing for me as much as he had his opportunity and just didn't do anything with it. And some guys that happens, and then in year 2 they figure it out. Cool, it's a possibility, but that I don't want to bet on those kind of guys in this class because they're not going to get the opportunity that they might in other years. They'll get the second, third chance. You're not getting a second and third chance this year. Corum showed enough that he could be the guy where Jaylen Wright just didn't. So I think that's the biggest difference.
Yeah. NFL coaches do not see these as equivalent players. We have Michael Kinsel in the chat is asking, Diggs and Keenan Allen, where do you want them to land?
For me, I would say Diggs, I could see a scenario with New England where he gets a lot of targets, and that could be a pretty nice spot for him potentially. I wouldn't have minded him back in Houston, to be honest, but Houston made a trade for Christian Kirk, and I think it's a pretty good, like, under the radar move. So I don't see him going back there as much. I could also see a scenario for Diggs, maybe on a team like the Chargers. Potentially, they already have a slot, but they could really use another wide receiver. So there's not a ton of spots available for him right now. Keenan, I'm worried he just might be done. I think Keenan might just be done.
Done and dusted for Keenan Allen. He already was running a 4.7 coming out of college. And he probably at this point runs a 4.9. There's just not enough explosiveness. He has that same problem as Cooper Kupp, where as soon as you start getting the lower body injuries and you start sapping your explosiveness, there weren't a lot of fast twitch muscle fibers to work with in the beginning. Whereas Diggs has a little bit more. Diggs, Davante Adams, they have a little bit more to work with in terms of baseline explosiveness, baseline athleticism. And I love Diggs to New England. This is so perfect. I wish they could turn their entire receiver room over. Just keep Pop Douglas as like a slot guy, depth guy, and then draft 2 receivers in the draft. I want them to draft two receivers. I want them to draft both Iowa State receivers.
I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind that at all.
They could do it. They could trade back into the second round, or if one of these guys slips for whatever reason into the third round, early third round, they could get them both. I think that would be very cool. Because they make each other less expensive. If it was just Jalen Noel, if it was just Higgins, that they would have such a dominator rating at Iowa State. They'd just be a little more attractive to everybody. There'd be more tape. There'd be more big plays. The numbers would be better, and that's the problem when you draft a guy like a Jordan Matthews who was super dominant at Vanderbilt, right? Is like, who else did they have? Well, he's going to be put up dominant numbers. Whereas, hey, Brian Thomas, he's going to be taking some looks away from Malik Neighbors and vice versa. So, and anyone that if some team ended up somehow getting both Neighbors and Thomas, they're very happy. This is very much the discount version of that with these Iowa State receivers. So I have a dynasty shopping list for you. Some of these guys we've already talked about. So we've talked about Corum's on my dynasty shopping list. We talked about Najee Harris on my dynasty. Breece Hall. Talked about these guys. You agree. Jaylen Waddle. You agree with that. Okay. Some other guys I have on my dynasty shopping list. Okay. I'm willing to buy high on Ricky Pearsall.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, looking at your list, I would say I am in agreement on it, with the exception of one name that I would staunchly be against.
Okay, so
all the others,
I'm gonna get the full list. I'm gonna get the full list,
right.
and I'm gonna do a whole separate video on this. I'm gonna have a whole separate podcast and separate piece dedicated to my trade targets for sure. It deserves that.
Okay.
So Corum, Pearsall, Josh Downs, Najee Harris, Breece Hall, Rome Odunze. We talked about this earlier. The Kirk to Houston makes me want C.J. Stroud more. Devontae Adams. Now, you mentioned earlier, the Seattle backfield. I think it's a relatively safe backfield. Whether it's Charbonnet, I'm more of a Kenneth Walker guy, but I think they're both values. Aaron Jones, because I'm not. You have to have some older players on your list. You have to have an Adams. You have to have a Jones. These are championship pieces in Dynasty. Marvin Mims. We talked about Waddle. Evan Ingram. Now, Rachaad White is, again, just another one of these Buccaneers running backs that I think are just safe. Olave. Kyle Pitts. George Kittle. And Garendo. So I think I'm targeting a bunch of 49ers. I think the 49ers are a great team that's sort of in flux. I'm always targeting the teams that are in flux and the players that are just the next level down in the depth chart. So not Jennings, not McCaffrey. Who's next on this roster that's in flux? And that's Pearsall, that's Garendo, that's George Kittle. I said I like Evan Ingram. Some tight ends I like. Quarterback, beyond C.J. Stroud, I like Jameis Winston. I think Jameis Winston is there's going to be Dynasty League managers, and people hate these guys, right? They hate these guys that are making these pickups in the offseason, or they're getting these guys as throw-ins, and then they look up and they're in their starting lineup to win, and they're like, you're supposed to win with good players. Good young players are supposed to win Dynasty Leagues. And someone's winning with Jameis Winston, and you're like, that's how you do it, dude. Sorry. Not sorry. So I like scrap heap young quarterbacks like Will Levis. Happy to acquire him. So, okay, I listed a whole bunch of guys there, like 20 guys, but there's one guy on that list you really disagree with.
Yep, only one. That guy is Mr. C.J. Stroud.
Okay.
C.J. Stroud, I disagree with. Here's why.
But you like Kirk.
I could be dead wrong.
You think Kirk's a good addition?
I love Kirk. I love Christian Kirk. I think that made perfect sense for his value, for the team.
Yeah. Loved
the Kirk addition. Yep. I agree with that part.
Okay.
And this is coming from an Ohio State fan. C.J. Stroud gave us an incredible rookie season. And because of that, we saw his value spike up to what at times was the 103 pick this past season. Now, he had a down year this year, and I don't want to take too much into that. A lot of bad things happen with injuries and things like that. But that being said, he went from quarterback 10 in his rookie season to like quarterback 17, 18, 19, whatever it was this year. It was not great. But realistically, the only reason that he is still a second round pick and other guys like a Baker Mayfield are 4th and 5th round picks and Brock Purdy's below him and all of these other guys are below him is just because of how young CJ Stroud is. He doesn't have any rushing upside. So there's no he could make things happen. And he needs some elite playmakers, which he has one in Nico Collins, but he needs elite playmakers for him to be able to have those 400-yard, 3-touchdown passing type days. I think that's really difficult to bank on when you can get somebody a lot cheaper a couple rounds later that will give you just as many, if not more points, even if you're adding 3 or 4 years. What's a 30-year-old in Dynasty who the difference isn't really that big. They're going to be traded from your roster in 3 or 4 years anyway. So for me, I think CJ Stroud is the one player I would disagree with there. The rest of the list I love, but I disagree with Stroud.
All right. So I recently had a weekend getaway with my wife in New York City.
Okay.
So my daughter went on a big school trip for her spring break, and so we decided we were gonna live in Connecticut. We don't go to New York enough. Go to see a show, stay in a hotel, go to some nice restaurants, all those things, right? And so we're at a wine bar, and we're on our phones, and we're talking about something else, and then she goes to me, And this is how, this is how you love your wife, and you're like, this is working out good. She's like, so what do you think of CJ Stroud?
Wow.
And I'm like, I don't know. What do you think of CJ Stroud? Where is this going? Why are you saying, how do you know who CJ Stroud is? And I'm like, I don't know. I kind of, I think I said this. I think I was like, I don't know. I kind of like him in Dynasty. I think he's a young player. He had a down year. You can see her eyes just glaze over like immediately. Like she's like, this is not interesting. And I'm like, well, what do you think about CJ Stroud? She's like, I don't know. I don't know about his decision making. And I'm like, really? His decision making? And she's like, yeah, he's dating young Miami. And so, anytime you're dating someone that is not their real name and they're, on Instagram, or they're, talking to Shannon Sharp on the podcast, and you're in the center of all of the, gossip world, celebrity gossip world, it's just not great. Right? If you found out he was dating Kim Kardashian, that would not help his dynasty value. Right? I don't even know who this is. Like, but this is apparently like the next Kim Kardashian, and I immediately was like, yeah, I'm not going to be as aggressive trying to trade for this guy. It's true. It's true, cuz when you're thinking about, I'm like, Jalen Hurts is building a football field at his house and is cordoning himself off from the world, and is only allowing wide receivers to visit him for a 9-month period before the season starts. And that's not exactly what he's doing, but
Right.
That's what it takes. Right? That's why whenever you heard, Dak Prescott, love him or hate him, you have to love that he is building a football field and a separate house for CeeDee Lamb to live in. Like when I heard that, he's like, I'm building a side house next to my real house, my main house, and that's where CeeDee's going to stay, and we're going to basically throw footballs all day long. And I'm like, well, that's what I'm talking about. Probably not going to be investing the time that it would take to get involved with, elite party goer, socialite person. So with Dynasty, especially when it's these guys and you have them for their careers, I don't mind if you see what's happening off the field and you factor that in. If it makes the hair stand up in the back of your neck, like, I don't know. Don't love that this person's getting involved with, in the, celebrity lifestyle, the celebrity jet setting lifestyle, would rather them stay home and throw footballs. I get it. Like, I totally get that. So, and I felt myself doing that. I was like, I take a lot of pride in like, I look at the metrics, he look at his rookie season. He's actually more mobile than he showed at Ohio State. I'm very like, I'm gonna stay level headed here, but then I was like, man, really wish he was only focused on football. Shit, damn it. So anyway, that happened.
Elite call out for your wife there, though. That's pretty special.
It's pretty cool though. If you're focused, obsessed with sports. And then whatever it takes, man, whatever it takes to have a conversation that somehow intersects with sports, and just you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, right? Know when to walk away, completely different, change the conversation. Where I think I once I mentioned Christian Kirk and started getting into the specifics of the talent configuration and how he is going to work so well with Nico Collins and his slot rate at Texas A&M. It was over. I was like, we got to pivot. We got to change the topic. I've ruined it. I ruined it. Once Christian Kirk's Texas A&M slot rate came into play, I knew we had to pivot the conversation. But I really appreciated her making a go of it with CJ Stroud, trying to find some relevance, you know?
Absolutely.
So that's all the rest of those you agree with?
I was good with her. I love the Evan Ingram. I think he could have a huge year this year. The only other ones I would be like a little lukewarm on. I'm a little lukewarm on Olave, lukewarm on Pitts. But yeah, for the most part, like I love Najee Harris. I think Josh Downs is a good call. Devontae's going to have a huge year for the Rams. Like, yeah, I feel pretty good about it. Yeah, Olave and Pitts would be the only other ones where I'm kind of like, I could take it or leave it.
So anyway, yeah. So the chat wants to know who this is. Here, I got a picture here. This is it. No, that's not it. How do we get? I'm gonna find it here. Where is it? Is that it? Hey, there she is.
There we go.
Pretty good looking lady.
There we go.
So I get it. But again, it's not the lady. It's the time. The time necessary to invest. Right. I think LeBron was with his high school sweetheart. Right. Because he doesn't have time. Right.
Yep.
That makes sense. That makes more sense to me. Anyway. Rookies. I think we've gone this long. 116. And very little rookie talk. We got to get into it. So overall, you agree this is a very strong draft class, but not quite at the 2024 level because the receivers just can't compete. Is that how you see it, or do you see it differently?
No, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair assessment. It's obviously a much, much, much better running back class. That kind of balances out the wide receiver from last year. So kind of neutral when it's just wide receiver and running backs together. But when you look at last year's quarterback class compared to this year's quarterback class, that's what really gives 2023 the edge.
Good. I'm glad we're on the same page. I mean, the quarterback class in particular, of course, for skill positions at the NFL level as an NFL GM, it's they're not comparable. But for fantasy football, there is a line if especially these Iowa State receivers hit. If both the Iowa State receivers hit, right, and we get one other hit, then this running back class being so much more dominant and just light years ahead of last year. Because last year we had very unlucky because we had the Jonathan Brooks injury. A bunch of players just didn't get the opportunity that we wanted them to get. Corum and all these guys just couldn't ever get
Boyd was hurt most of the
single
year.
game as a starter, unfortunately. So they just they didn't get a good run out. Davis, same thing. So many of these guys, Benson, they were behind either small, undersized, aging running backs, and they just couldn't sniff the starting lineup. But that's what it is. I mean, it wasn't a strong running back class. The dominance of this running back class, if we get a few hits at wide receiver, then it can be competitive for total fantasy points scored. Now, give us a sleeper running back, or at least a couple, even maybe multiple sleeper running backs from this class.
Sure. One sleeper that I really like, I think he has a high ceiling, is LeQuint Allen from Syracuse. So he's 6 foot tall, but he's only coming in. He was at the Senior Bowl at 208, 204 at the Combine. So for a 6 foot tall running back, that's pretty good height, but not a ton of weight behind it. But what we're talking about here is he was a special pass catcher, over 500 yards receiving at Syracuse last year. And he put up 20 total touchdowns. And specifically what I liked, I'm more of a tape grinder. I played some college football. I like watching the tape. So with watching him, particularly near the goal line, there are certain guys that have a different knack for finding the end zone versus other players. And he all of a sudden looked like a 220, 225-pound player once he got near the goal line. And he would run through, run over, whatever he had to do to get in the end zone. So if this is a player that can add 10 pounds or so at the next level, and his height would suggest, his frame would suggest that he should be able to do that, I think we could have a pretty nice all-around player for the next level. So LeQuint Allen is a little higher on my board than I think he is universally.
That's incredible. Give us one more. Give us another running back.
Another running back that could be potentially in the Kyren Williams, Bucky Irving range of not a fantastic athlete, but a fantastic football player, just does football things well. Kyle Monangai did not test well. His numbers at the combine, not exciting at all. But he is a player that does a lot of little things well. And he is another player that just, he's mean. Like he looks like, it looks like he just wants to take on the entire defense at every opportunity, just fight and claw his way to success. So that's the hard part, is he's going to fall into, like I said, that Kyren Williams where he bombed the combine. Bucky Irving last year did not do well at the combine, but they're good football players. He's one of those guys that if I were to place a bet on somebody to overcome their lack of athletic ability, it would be Kyle Monangai.
Okay, so you got to get Kyle Monangai because both you and RC Fisher love this guy. Everybody that watches him loves him. They love the tape. Man. They love the effort. They love the lateral agility, the vision. He has all the intangibles. He just doesn't have the speed.
Yep. That's the big thing for him. He's great vision. Great vision, real good patience. And it plays bigger than his size suggests. But yep, he does not have the long speed at all.
In the Origins game on FastDraft, he typically goes round 5, round 6. Now, what's interesting this year, last year's round 5, round 6, people got no production. There was Vele. There was nothing. It was a wasteland, right? It was like Brendan Rice. People were drafting these guys.
Sure.
The depth at tight end, the depth at running back, especially, but even the depth at wide receiver is there this year in a way that it wasn't there. So I think that the Origins rookie game on FastDraft, again, use code NERDS. Code NERDS gets you a $50 deposit match. $50 deposit match with code NERDS. Get the FastDraft app. Oh, FastDraft just crossed 100 reviews in the App Store. So If you are using the FastDraft app and you haven't reviewed it yet, I would love for you to review it in the App Store or Google Play. It helps, get the app to more people. But that was cool. Yeah, we had some people. It wasn't even that long ago, a few months ago. I had someone say, or on social media, it's only 30 reviews or something. This app's not for real. And then I just thought, I was like, okay, all right, fair enough, buddy. Fair enough. It's not a lot of reviews. I get it. But the last time I checked, all new apps start out with 0 reviews.
True statement.
And what do you need? You need 100? Okay, we'll get 100. So then, Garrett asked so many people, hey, if you like the app, review it. Sure enough, we chip away, we get to 100. So this is just these are the little things, man. I was talking to Pat Doherty from the NBC Sports and Roto World today. He's like, man, this sounds so stressful what you're doing with FastDraft. And I was like, man, I celebrate the little wins. You celebrate these little wins, man. And then but I think it's also just fascinating to see people's strategy and to see these teams come together. And you just know this year. Like last year, an interesting strategy was to go tight end in round 5 and 6 just to get some production from somebody, but it didn't even work. The just preponderance of talent that's available in this draft class, especially day 3, we're going to be broadcasting live from Tampa because I don't know if you know this, but I booked an Airbnb in the wrong place. It was supposed to be Green Bay, but I did Tampa Bay instead. So it was a mistake. Right? So we accidentally booked the Airbnb. It was in Tampa Bay. So anyone from the Dynasty Nerds wants to stop by our place in Indian Rocks, Tampa Bay, to broadcast the NFL draft. We're broadcasting every pick live. Cody Carpentier and the boys will be there. And day 3 is going to be I remember day 3 last year, we had this incredible lodge in Michigan we were broadcasting. And day 3 was pretty boring. I remember celebrating the Kamani Vidal to the Chargers, and then I just remember Vidal, and then the rest of it was meh.
Blah. Yep.
This year, day 3 is going to be pretty exciting. So you definitely want to tune in for day 3. But that translates into a lot of talent in round 5 and round 6 in the FastDraft Origins tournament, where I think that this year, just keep pounding running back. I think it's a very sound strategy. The Monangai and all these, there's so many that you just keep going back to the well at running back. I think that's a very safe play, but I also believe we had a record low number of keyed running back injuries last year. I posted this on social media. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Like, if you just look at the average number of games missed by players that are in, say, the top 25 of fantasy points per game, typically, if you look at, a bunch of years, Christian McCaffrey is in, of course, he's in the top 25 fantasy points per game with like 9 games played or 11 games played. And you actually have a bunch of those guys most years. We're talking like 8, 9, 10 of those guys. Whereas like last year, there was 2 out of 25. Everyone else played almost every game.
So it's just him and Chris Godwin, basically?
No, I'm talking about running backs.
Or are you talking specifically running back? Oh, okay.
Specifically running backs. It was crazy. Like almost everyone was Najee Harris last year. Just healthy, no matter what, right? Even if the teams were trying to fly way too close to the sun with guys like Kyron Williams, it just worked out. Like they kept rolling the dice and they kept coming to the end of the game healthy. That is not going to happen again. So for a bunch of reasons, it's the talent of this class, but it's also the probability that there's more injuries that reverts back to the mean going to be much higher this year. So for that reason, yeah, you just want to, looking at the running backs. I mean, we're talking about, you said LeQuint Allen. We have him at RB17 on the Player Profiler rookie rankings. But there's also Raheem Sanders. There's Taj Brooks. There's Monangai. I mean, it goes all the way down to like RB30. Oh, well, DJ Giddens I wouldn't consider DJ Giddens a sleeper. I think DJ Giddens is just for real. I mean, anyone that's seen his profile on Player Profiler, I mean, I can't believe it. This is a guy that would be clearly, easily a day 2 player in any other class, where he's going to fall to day 4 and someone's going to get incredible value on Giddens.
Yeah. I'm really excited about Giddens. He's one of the biggest like boom bust players in this class for me. Really good receiving ability, great vision, and lateral ability is there. There's a lot to like. There's some things that are frustrating at times with him, but he has some very top end traits that if they translate, it's going to be pretty fun.
What are we? What do I need to know that's in any way concerning about him?
So what he does with the ball in his hands once he catches the pass is good, but he has some like really inexcusable drops at times where he's fighting the football a little bit. So I worry about that a little bit. Almost no pass protection ability, which is annoying. It doesn't get you fantasy points, but it's annoying because coaches will keep guys off the field because of that. So those would be the 2 things that I would have in the back of my mind as just like, that's what could hold him back. But some of the other things he does so well that if he gets his opportunity, he could do some really awesome things at the next level.
He is one of those types of players where we could start to hear whispers about ball security issues.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that you just come up. Like, that's one of those guys where you love the profile, you love the athleticism, mega producer in college, but for whatever reason, putting the ball on the ground in camp, and you just can't explain it. Like, you can't explain it. Like, I still can't explain what I saw from Chase Brown. Was just an incredible producer at Illinois, and what you saw from him at the Senior Bowl was impossible to comprehend. How much he was putting the ball on the ground, how bad his hands were out of the backfield. It was weird. It was just bizarre, and that's just what happens. sometimes a player just doesn't meet the moment, even when on paper they look like they're a clear hit. And the other thing is, it's like, it just takes time. It just takes time. Like, things are speeding up in that person's head and they're forgetting to hold on to the football. Things start to slow down 6-7 weeks in. Suddenly that player starts to get opportunities. So yeah, it's, but it doesn't matter. There's so many of these guys. Plenty are going to hit. RJ Harvey, there's so many, plenty. What about wide receivers? So, okay, we're not allowed to talk anymore about the Iowa State receivers. Beyond them and Tet McMillan, who do you like?
I like Jaylen Royals quite a bit.
Okay.
I was actually just watching his tape last night and really liked what I saw. Seems to be a guy that always has a plan, whether it's for zone. He seems to always find the dead spot. Really keen awareness there. But even off the line, he has really nice release off the line. He's even a little more bursty than I thought. And he's got that running back build to him at 6 foot 205 that he can do a lot of nice things after the catch, which makes him a very appealing fantasy asset. So he's a guy at the wide receiver position I'm excited about. Elijah Arroyo, tight end from Miami, another guy that I'm really interested in. He profiles as more of a receiving type tight end. They're not going to ask him to block a ton. But he's going to catch a lot of passes. The production isn't amazing at Miami, but you see the skill set, and the rumblings I'm hearing is potentially, looking at it like a round 2 type tight end in the NFL. If you're getting that early day 2 draft capital, you feel pretty good about their chances to maybe succeed. But it's not a name that I'm hearing a ton. So another guy that I kind of want to keep on my radar.
The people I know and I trust love Arroyo. Absolutely love Arroyo. Can't talk enough about him. Love, because he was at the Senior Bowl and was just completely dominant. Completely dominant. So yeah, the smart people. Yeah, a couple names you've dropped already. I'm like, okay, yeah, smart people continue to bring up Monangai, and now continue to bring up Arroyo. R.C.
Nice
Fisher
players
being one. You should have R.C. Fisher on your podcast.
I should, man. I need to connect with this guy.
R.C. Fisher knows things. He just grinds so much tape, and he just doesn't let the conventional wisdom or the consensus affect him in any way. Where I was like, man, you're really gonna fade Marvin Harrison Jr., dude. I don't know about that. He's off on an island screaming how Marvin Harrison's overrated before the season. It was a very difficult thing. Marvin Harrison was like the second pick in the second round on Underdog for best ball last year.
Yeah.
People forget. Like that's how crazy. It was crazy. They were drafting Marvin Harrison over Saquon Barkley in best ball. That's the thing that happened. And this guy comes out and he's like, yeah, he's not even that good. And I'm like, wow. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Let's I'm gonna let it ride. In terms of the free agent landing spots, right, where you have like Darnold in Seattle, and you now we have target share opening up for JSN. You got Metcalf in Pittsburgh, so we have an interesting shuffle here. We had a question earlier in the chat about Adonai Mitchell and whether or not we should be truthering Adonai Mitchell. Is there hope for Adonai Mitchell? And if I'm targeting Josh Downs in trade, pretty much similar process for targeting Adonai Mitchell, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, your hope more or less is that Anthony Richardson is not the quarterback, unless you think that he's going to take a huge, and I'm meaning huge, step forward as a passer. That's a tough thing to project at the NFL level. There's a few guys that have been able to do it, but that's a tall task. So you're hoping for Daniel Jones. But we saw Adonai Mitchell in college. He was a great deep threat, tracks the ball really, really well. And so if you're going to target Josh Downs, he's a guy that could also potentially boom. I would be, as much as I like Adonai Mitchell, I liked him as a prospect, I would still be heavier on Josh Downs, though. I think either way, both of these guys would be more likely to target, accurately anyway, Josh Downs than they would be Adonai Mitchell, with just the type of routes and the ADOT and things like that.
Now, we know Michael Pittman was banged up last year, had the bad back for the majority of the season. That said, even though he underperformed, I still don't think that he is a player that I would consider a proper alpha, right? You can be hurt and you can underperform, which he clearly did, and still, even at 100%, not an alpha. Like, the injury concealed, I think, and also provided, a rationalization for people to keep going back to Pittman. And I've done that myself. Like, I remember this happening where I was like, well, he continues to sort of shrink from the moment. A guy that's 6'4", 225, he really should be stepping up, and instead he's stepping down, but he was hurt, so I'll give him another. No. Like, sometimes, yes, he had the bad back, but if you actually zoom out, has never really been that guy. And so it's very possible. I think that he's going into the second year of a 3-year contract. Now, the contract term's $70 million for 3 years. Only $46 million guaranteed. So $46 million for a contract extension, not great, right? And they have an out next year. So he could be on his last year. Typically, any number of years that a player signs, if it's a 3-year deal, it's really a 2-year deal, right? Sometimes a 3-year deal is a 1-year deal, but it's almost never a 3-year deal. Unless it's like Kirk Cousins was the last one to sign a deal that was the legitimate, like, authentic amount
guaranteed money,
of years.
Yeah.
Like, it was a 3-year deal that was actually a 3-year deal, or 4 years that was actually 4 years. So, yeah, they can get out for $5 million next year for Michael Pittman. And if Michael Pittman, again, shrinks from the moment, you can see that happening. If you go back and look at his numbers over the last few years, he did have the 15 fantasy points per game, but only 10.6 yards per reception that year. So again, he had and there was no target competition, and he didn't score any touchdowns. Do you know how many touchdowns he's scored in 5 years in the NFL?
Ooh, I'm gonna guess 25.
18.
Oof.
18 in 5 years. Okay. What? With this guy's averaging less than 4 touchdowns per season. And for a guy that's 6'5", 220, yes, he gave you the wide receiver 14 fantasy points per game season in 2023. That was his high watermark, was never a top 20 receiver otherwise, and didn't have any target competition that year. This guy looks like he should be a complete, total alpha receiver, but he's just was never that guy. Played all 4 years at USC, didn't come out early, was good, not great at the Senior Bowl, and just hasn't ever really become what physically he was capable of. Because if you stand next to this guy, you're like, wow, this is an impressive dude. And yet, it's almost like he and DK Metcalf are these fake alphas. They're fake in different ways, but they're fake nonetheless. And so, to me, once you can make a decision on a guy, hey, he's age 27, it's a wrap, we know what he is, then at that point in Dynasty, it's time to move on and put your chips on Josh Downs and Adonai Mitchell.
Yeah, I with the relative cost, I think especially Josh Downs really seems primed for that role. The only thing that would talk me off of him is if the Colts go tight end round 1, then maybe we're seeing guys in a similar zone of the field that could maybe steal a little bit. But that would be really the only thing. So But as far as Michael Pittman Jr. goes, and this is coming from a guy that liked Michael Pittman as a prospect, and there were times where we saw flashes of what could be, but he's never done it consistently. And that's what's made it really, really hard to trust him. And he's down bad right now. But unfortunately it's deserving.
Yeah. We're zooming out here. We're not just saying, hey, last year he didn't deliver, so he's overrated. It's not about that. We know last year he wasn't himself, and don't let that actually talk yourself into him, right? Don't let the injury be an excuse to talk yourself into Michael Pittman. And I also want to address this in the chat. James Denoyer. He says touchdowns are not sticky, not a reason to be out on a player. I remember DJ Moore was allergic to the end zone. Okay. Well, see, James, here's the thing. In an individual season, I would be with you. So he scored 4 touchdowns in 2022 on 141 targets. Year before that, he had 6. Year before that, he only had 1. It's like there's plenty of hope for him to still be an alpha at that point. Okay? Because touchdowns, again, yeah, in an individual season, they're not that sticky. But he's played 16 games. 16 games, 16 games, 17 games, and then 13 games as a rookie. So if we do the math, that's 30 games through his first 2 years, then another 32 games through his next 2 years. So now we're up to 62 games plus another 16. That's 78 games. A stat through 78 NFL games is as sticky as it's going to get. Okay? You can't say through 70 games. And then how many snaps are in a game? At some point, you have enough data, the data set is big enough where we can say with much more definitive certainty with a 5-year sample than a 1-year sample, this guy is not a consistent red zone threat. That's decided. That's not lacking stickiness. That's 5 years of this guy playing almost every game. He's I can't believe we are at a point where there's a member of this audience giving me stickiness on a 5-year sample.
Dylan just said this. He has also been with terrible quarterbacks. You give him a different quarterback, maybe we're having a slightly different conversation, but it's not. We're still in a bad quarterback spot.
You think he would? You think he put a double? Could he have put up double-digit touchdowns last year with the Bengals like T. Higgins did? T. Higgins finally. T. Higgins, a notorious fake alpha, and then last year with the Bengals found a way to put up double-digit touchdowns. Would Michael Pittman have done that? The answer is no. No.
You don't think so?
No. No, he would not have, because that's not his game. He is not this outside clasher that where they call his number in the red zone. That he has been on a team where he has been the option, the only guy that even remotely looks the part of a red zone weapon on a team for 5 years. You think they're drawing up plays for Josh Downs in the red zone? Right? No. If they had Gesicki last year, they had Jamar Chase. Okay? No, that's not him. He is a faker alpha than T. Higgins. And I can guarantee you, had Michael Pittman been on that team last year, he also would have had the back injury, so it would have held him back. 9 touchdowns. Michael Pittman would have scored exactly 9 touchdowns on the Bengals last year.
I love it.
It's an unfalsifiable hypothetical. That's the best part about doing shows and having a camera and a microphone in any context, is that you can just use unfalsifiable hypotheticals and say things. And as long as you're constructing a sound argument and it's data-based and reasonable, you can say it and win an argument. So, I mean, what do you think? 8, 9, or 10 touchdowns for Pittman last year on the Bengals?
I think the part that I love, this is what warmed my heart, is no chance he gets 10 touchdowns. I'll give him 9. That was the part that I loved. That was the part that I loved personally.
Yeah. And T. Higgins only got 10 in 12 games. Right? T. Higgins was a touchdown machine last year, but that's
really
what
was.
he is. 18.5 fantasy points per game with great quarterback play on a team that had to throw to be competitive. But here's the other thing. The Colts have one of the worst secondaries in the league. One of the things you look for when you're trying to acquire wide receivers in fantasy football is how good is the secondary of this guy's team. It's, I think, my favorite factor that few people talk about. If I don't want wide receivers on teams that have awesome secondaries, like that is actually a danger. That is the biggest danger with Rome Odunze, right? Is the Bears defense could be too good, especially shutting down opposing passing games, and then there just aren't enough shootouts. Whereas Jamar Chase was such a smash last year, and T. Higgins, but I wasn't, it's hard for me to, clearly I have a bias against fake alphas. But Jamar Chase, such an easy smash last year, knowing the Bengals were shedding all the talent in their secondary. And so they're going up against teams, even the Browns, where they could, they're going to score some points. I mean, imagine the Bengals in a division where they could actually throw the ball against you. Instead, it's like Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson handing off to Derrick Henry. Imagine the Bengals were in a division with a bunch of prolific offenses, and how many shootouts that they would be in, and how great that would be for Burrow and Chase and Higgins. And so, yeah, that is the under the radar factor. Not as big of a deal for Dynasty because that stuff fluctuates year to year. Do we have Jesse Bates or not can make such a huge difference. I mean, we talk about Tom Brady. We talk about, whether the Ravens having Ed Reed made just the biggest difference possible. Right? So sometimes it can come down to just one player. But if you knew that that their team leader, the cornerstone of their secondary they were losing him to free agency, like an Ed Reed type figure, you should be more likely to draft those receivers.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. You want those games that are shootouts. You're not trying to go a slow pace of play against teams that are giving up rushing yards, because that's just going to take up more time and more time and more time.
Yeah, it's like, I have receivers playing against Kansas City. That's not great. Their secondary is awesome, and they know to just let people run against them, and they'll win the game 21-20. And Patrick Mahomes, his numbers suffered. One of the reasons why his numbers suffered, their secondary is too damn good.
Yep.
That was part of the problem for even Patrick Mahomes. Their secondary became a problem because it was too good. And the only way to reverse that would be if the defensive coordinator decided to outthink himself and decide, okay, this has been working all year and we have the best record in the league, but in this one game against this one team in the Super Bowl, we're going to sell out against the run.
We're going
to stop because we're too scared of this guy. We're going to change everything, change our whole, because he probably saw some documentary about how Belichick decided to change their whole strategy just to stop Marshall Faulk in that first Super Bowl for the Patriots. He probably saw that documentary, being like, this is our Marshall Faulk moment against Saquon Barkley. We're going to do what Bill did, which was let Kurt Warner beat us. Right? It was like, wait a second. No. That wasn't even a good strategy at the time. They just got lucky. Anyone that watched that game, it was one of the luckiest games of the Super Bowl. That's why I'm a Patriots fan. And when these helmet catches are happening and the best throw of all time to Mario Manningham down the sidelines is happening, I don't feel bad because I also know we didn't have any business beating the Rams. So it's like, this is football, right? That's what it is. And so when you see, oh yeah, why are they selling out to stop Barkley and just letting Jahan Dotson beat them in the Super Bowl? This doesn't make it. This is not the Chiefs that I've been watching all year. It's like, no, somebody meddled with their system and their scheme. So, and it was probably a 70-year-old defensive coordinator. Just a guess. Just a wild,
Tell me there's a chance.
Crazy guess. That's just a out of the blue, pull it out of nowhere guess. All right. In Dynasty, we have truthers. So who is your number one truther? The guy that you're not dropping? You know, someone like a Jahan Dotson, but not.
Sure. On sentimental value alone.
Yes.
I always loved this guy. Even struck up a friendship with him. And so this guy right here, Mr. DJ Dallas, still have him at the end of every roster, the back end of every team.
Okay.
Running back now for the Cardinals.
He's on the Cardinals.
Yep.
Good for him. He's probably better than DeMarcado.
So I've had him for forever. Since he was a rookie, had him on every team. And now it just the team doesn't feel complete unless I have him.
I'm a truther for a running back too. Hold on.
All right, let's see it. I'm excited to see who this is. It's a much better one to be a truther for.
Jonathan Taylor, truther, right here.
That's a much better one to be a truther for. Oh man, yeah, that's a fantastic one to be a truther for.
That was from a listener sent me that. Can you believe it?
Man, look at that. Nice of them.
You know, hashtag blessed. Hashtag
Absolutely.
Blessed. Give us
DJ
a bold
Dallas
prediction. Oh, but DJ Dallas, man, if you know him, that's so cool.
Bold prediction for this coming season?
Yeah.
Ooh, let's see. Let's go with. I'm going to say. See, I wanted to do something with my Browns, but we're so bad. We're so bad, and it's so painful that I can't do it. But my bold
Browns take Jeanty?
The Ashton Jeanty to the Browns.
Imagine?
But I could see Omari and Hampton. I would not be surprised if they went that route in the second round. If he falls that far, which I don't think he will.
Not going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen. All right. I'm going to say, we've talked about it a little bit already. I'm going to say Daniel Jones takes over by week 5 and makes the playoffs with the Colts. Daniel Jones takes over by week 5, makes the playoffs with the Colts.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.